Hi, I'm Peter Ryan from the Mechanical Engineering Department in DKIT, and this is the second video in my series on Introduction to 3D Printing. Okay, so in this video I want to quickly look at how we create the geometry file that we need to create our 3D printer instructions and then take that to the 3D printer. So this video will concentrate just on the step involved in creating this geometry file. Okay, so I'm going to presume that you have already created your file in Solidworks or in Fusion 360 or in some other piece of software, and I'm going to quickly show you how to then get that ready to send it to the 3D printer software that we need, okay, our slicer. So here's something that I have already modeled in SolidWorks. So this, whatever model you want to print, this is a blade of an impulse turbine for a wave energy device. Okay, so in this case it's just a solid. I haven't hollowed it out or shelled it out. So it's one solid piece, and I can use my 3D printer software, my slicer software, to actually shell that out and create a mesh inside it rather than having it solid if I want to do that. Okay, so all I need to do once I have my file created is to go up and save as. And I just need to save it into a format that my 3D printer slicer software is able to read. And the one I use is STL, so .stl. Okay, and there are options in here. I'll just bring this over to this screen. So there is a range of options in here. You can do with a coarse mesh or a fine mesh. I think I've just went with a custom and I've dragged these till I got a shape that worked for me. Okay, so you can go with fine, right? And I'll probably go a little bit even finer than that. So somewhere maybe there. Okay, you can play around with this a little bit when you create your mesh. When you bring it into the 3D printer, you'll see how accurate curves have printed and if they have flat lines on them. Okay, so they're a series of straight lines rather than a nice even circle. So you can probably go with something like maybe that. I think that looks about right without creating the mesh too big. Okay, the larger you make the mesh, the larger it will take to create the slicer file when we actually try to run it in the 3D printer slicer. So for now I'm going to leave it at that, but you may be fine with something coarse, or you know what, I'll just go with default fine for now and you can see what that looks like. So if I just go with OK, and I can call, it doesn't really matter what we call this, so we can call it blade, OWC blade, I guess. And I'm just going to go with EG so that I know it's an example. Okay, and I'm going to hit save. I'm going to save this to my desktop just so that I know where to get it easily for this video series. Okay, so that's the mesh that it has created. Okay, so it has turned your solid model into this wire mesh and it's asking me to press OK. So I don't think I can rotate this now, I can't. Okay, so it gives you the option selected bodies. So I guess if you had multiple parts in here, you could pick the ones you wanted, but for a part file like this, all bodies is fine. Okay, and that has created my STL file. And if I find that file then, and I'll show you what that looks like. I'm not sure if it's on which screen it has saved it on my desktop. So when you're looking for these files, they will either be a 3D object file when you look at them, or it will come up as a Cura if you already have Cura set up. So I'm not sure if that has actually worked for me or not. Okay, so I have found that file now. So it's this one. So it's coming up as just a 3D object. So if I open this, it will open it in a 3D viewer. Okay, it's just taking a little while, probably because I made the mesh fine. So you can see that the curvature is quite good on that. Okay. Okay, so you can't see flats on that, so that will be fine usually for most cases. Okay, so that's my STL file. That's with Solidworks. So another way you could quickly do it would be in Tinkercad. So I can quickly show you a file in Tinkercad. And it's quite straightforward again. So this is just something I brought in as an image file off the internet, an SVG file. Okay, so if you bring in any 2D line drawing, so in this case it was just making a keyring quickly. So you can bring it in and then just extrude up a thickness onto it. Okay, so you've given a thickness of 2 or 3 mil or something just for a keyring. And whatever part you've created, or you can create the part with blocks, there are building blocks for creating parts. So it's simply a matter of going up to export and picking .stl. Okay, and it automatically then downloads that to your folder. It gives it some stupid name so you can rename it so that you know what it is. Okay, so that's Tinkercad. There are other packages. A lot of the 3D modelers like Fusion 360, you can just file save as. Some you may have to convert. Okay, so you need to look at your particular drawing software and how that works. If you're using free samples or free trials of some of the software, some of them are restricted that you can't export to external file types, so they might stop you using STL. So it's probably a good idea to check before you spend time modeling in a particular piece of free software if you actually can create an STL without subscription charges or something like that. Okay, so once you have that STL file, we'll then read that in to our slicer software, and we'll do that in the next video. Okay, so I'll give you an overview of the slicing software in the next video, and then a video of actually bringing in our file that we just created.